Josh says that was wrong in Biden calling Trump supporters garbage. We are supposed to love our neighbor Jesus. So, Josh, when did Biden call Trump supporters garbage? But you're right. If he said it, then yeah, he was wrong. Hillary Clinton, when she called them deplorables, was wrong. Absolutely. Kamala Harris was given a chance by Brett Baer a couple of weeks ago. He asked her, how come, Trump has so many supporters? Are these people misguided? Are they stupid? And my heart kind of stopped. I thought, oh, Lord, no, don't do it. And she did. She said, oh, God, no, I would never, ever call anyone stupid. I would never call an American citizen stupid, a voter stupid. And she's right. That's the right response. That's the right response. Now, the other side of that coin is if Biden was wrong in doing it, then so is Trump in saying if you don't vote for him, then you should get your head checked. You should have your head checked. You must need your head checked. It's the same thing. You're calling people, you're saying that there's something broken about you. There's something wrong with you if you don't vote for me. And he's done that to Latinos, the Jewish people, and African Americans. You're right. Any derogatory comment like that is absolutely wrong. I haven't heard Biden call people garbage. I know he has some names for Trump, but that's different. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's use this to jump into one of the things that I want to talk about because I watched that whatever it was in Madison Square Garden, and then I watched clips, and then I watched people responding and people covering up and people attacking about what took place at Madison Square Garden at the Trump rally 2024, which was last Saturday. So it was like the 27th, 28th, whatever it was. Of course, you saw, everybody's seen the comedian, whatever that person was, the person who started off, he's supposed to be a comedian. I didn't think anything he said was funny. Mortifying, as a matter of fact. We're not going to repeat it, but we also heard people talk about. We heard people villainize immigrants. We heard people villainize Democrats. We heard people villainize the Palestinians. We heard people. It was a hateful free for all. It was a hateful free for all, and as I've described the other day, Madison Square Garden is one of the. It might not be the largest venue, like numbers, but it's one of the most, it has that prestigious feel to it. Like it's a thing. You did a thing at Madison Square Garden. That's a thing. That matters. Madison Square Gardens is the venue, right? Like it's famous. It's famous for putting on concerts and for putting on sporting events and for putting on Nazi rallies in 1939. Like it's famous for being the place where people want to go to speak out into the world and share what it is they do and what it is they have to say. And so this was his biggest rally. Again, not necessarily in terms of numbers, but in terms of oomph, of the it factor. And so they brought their A-team. And their A-team went out there. And their A-team told us exactly what the A-team's all about. And like I said, they pointed at immigrants. They pointed at illegal immigrants. They pointed at Americans, Puerto Ricans. They pointed at Palestinians. It was just, the whole thing could have been summed up in, they're awful, be careful. They're awful, they suck, they're mean, they're thieves, they're this or that. Like it was just them saying everybody else out there, anybody that's not here basically is an enemy. Right? The enemy within, another line that Trump has begun using. Anyhow, I was thinking about this, and I know, especially in terms of when you use the word fascist. Kamala came out and they said, "Do you think Trump is a fascist?" She went, "Yes." Yes, I think he is. She came out and said it. Not only does he say fascist things, I think he's a fascist. And of course, Trump, at the exact same time, as Josh is mentioning here, right? People calling each other names. Trump says the same thing about her. She's a fascist. She's a socialist. She's a communist. That's one thing, right? So these two people are opponents in this election. They're running against one another, and they're going to say things back and forth at one another, and the two parties will say things back and forth at one another, because that's part of how we do elections. There's nothing terribly civil about them anymore. There's nothing terribly really political in the sense of policy anymore. It's just, you suck, no, you suck, no, you suck, no, you suck. And so you see that, and the difference that I see between the two sides, while both sides, again, go at each other, the difference that I see between these two sides, and there is no but what about them, okay? The difference that I see between these two sides is this. The Democrats will call Trump a fascist. They will say the Republicans have no policy. They will call the Republican, let's say they even call the whole Republican Party fascists. The Republicans do the same thing. You can hear it in their speeches. Fascists, socialists, communists, Marxists. Okay? The Democrats, Harris, Waltz, they do not tell me or you that there is somebody out there in the world that we're supposed to hate. Somebody out there in the world that's coming to eat our dogs and cats. Somebody out there in the world that's coming to do harm to our families. They don't instill fear in us about another group or another people. And they don't do it, especially they don't do it about vulnerable people. Immigrants are incredibly vulnerable. The LGBTQ community is incredibly vulnerable. The trans community is incredibly vulnerable. Palestinians are incredibly vulnerable. There are people in our world who find it difficult to feel as though they are a part of a society. They find it difficult to break into the core of our communities, right? To truly feel as though they are a part of our communities. Just like me and just like the person next to me, they feel it's difficult to be seen that way, to be welcomed. They're vulnerable. The Democrats don't point you to hate the vulnerable. The Republicans, however, do. And Madison Square Garden was an excellent example of that. The entire thing was people, one speaker after another, dehumanizing, diminishing, and holding up other people groups as a threat. It was a fear. It was a fiesta of fear. Yeah, that's what we'll go with. A nice little alliteration there. It was a fiesta of fear. You need to be afraid. 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 The whole thing. The Democrats, now you will hear them talk about a particular people group. So let's be clear on that. You will hear them talk about a particular people group, and they'll tell us that there's a particular people group that aren't pulling their weight, that these people they are not pulling their weight and they need to do more, and that they're taking too much from the Americans, right? They're taking too much from the American populace. They're talking about billionaires. But they never talk about the weak. They never talk about the marginalized. Certainly, in a sense of they don't villainize. They don't villainize the weak. They don't villainize the marginalized. They don't villainize the people who are out there on the edges of our society. They don't villainize the people who find it difficult to fit into our society. There is a difference between these two groups. And there's no whataboutism here. None. None at all. We're, as Christians, as we just went through with that voting guide, our job as Christians is not to be afraid of anybody, and it's certainly not to villainize anybody. Our job as Christians is to love. And, as we've talked before, if we find ourselves in the presence of people who are trying to make us afraid, we are in the presence of someone who is giving us an ungodly message. A message that should be ignored. A message that should be just should be ignored. We should walk away from it in droves. We should walk away from a message of fear, because it's going to get in the way of how we love. It's going to get in the way of who we choose to love. It's going to get in the way of how deeply we love, how deeply we care, how deeply we provide. Anybody that's feeding you fear is feeding you something that is not of God. And only one side tells us to fear the people on the margins. Only one side tells us to fear the same people that, quite literally, Jesus tells us to take care of. Amen.